The alpha and the vampire. What are you doing? He asked solemnly. We kissed, Leah confessed, finally letting the cat out of the bag. It was better for him to release his anger openly than giving her this silent torture. I'm not going to lie, I enjoyed it, she disclosed. It just felt so right, like this is what a part of my soul was missing out on all these years. But she stared him straight in the eyes and asked, but as blissful as that sounds, why do I still feel guilty? His gaze remained unwaveringly on hers while her voice broke and tears began to slide down her face. Why do I feel bothered? Why does my heart feel guilty when in fact I'm following it? Why does everything seem so complicated with you? Why do I feel for you when I've already been destined for someone else? Asher clutched his fist, trying so hard to contain his emotions that were threatening to surface, but the girl's words were tearing his heart out. The tears continued to trickle down her cheeks. What is wrong with me? She asked, exasperated, and began to wipe her face with her palm obsessively. At her sixth wipe, Asher stopped her and drew her towards him, staring at her with this odd gleam in his eyes. His cold, smooth hands cupped her cheek and rubbed away a hot tear with his thumb. Nothing is wrong with you, he assured her, his thumb caressing her cheek while his eyes fixed on hers intent. He was just conflicted. Was it right to confess the truth to her now? All this time, he's been careful. What would happen if he becomes careless for once? Maybe it's time to become selfish after all, having two mates? What an absurd joke. Here comes Leah, originally mated to a werewolf, but an accident and conspiracy had her mated to a vampire as well. Now she has to figure out the raging feelings she has for the alpha of the Silver Pack and the alpha of the Nicoli clan, and fighting off dark forces in need of her ability as well. This is all your fault. Leah yelled at the tomboy whose stamina was already failing her. Oh really? The tomboy scoffed, dodging a tree she would have rammed into if she wasn't paying attention. This is my fault now? Whose idea was it going into the haunted house? All yours. You said this would be the greatest adventure of all time, but I never thought this would be an adventure of me running for my dear life. She yelled, her heart almost leaping out of her chest when she heard the feral growl getting closer by each passing second. Sorry for disrupting your blame time, but we have to part ways here. There's a much greater chance of us surviving if we go different ways than staying and dying together, the tomboy pointed out and disappeared before Leah could oppose. You coward! Leah cursed, adding more speed even though her chest felt like it was on fire. No, she wasn't going to die. There was no way she was going to die in this eerie-looking wood. It would be days or probably weeks before they find her body. If such a disaster happens, moreover becoming a wolf's dinner is quite an embarrassing reason to be sent to the afterlife. No, she refuses to die this way. Gathering courage, she stopped and grabbed a nearby branch, trying to climb a tree. At least wolves can't climb trees, she thought, when she felt something grab her leg. Leah shrieked and tried kicking its hold on her feet, but instead, its claws dug into her skin as she let out a sharp cry. Distracted, she lost her balance and slipped from the tree, landing on the ground with a loud thud. Ground? No, no, no. Leah sat up at once, wincing at the pain in her leg, but that was nothing compared to the fear that crept into her heart when her eyes met glowing brown eyes. Oh God, I'm dead meat 48 hours ago. Sleepy, 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 wake up from the bed. Rex in a rhythmic, sing-song voice, hopping up and down her bed, ultimately woke her up. Ugh, get out! She snapped, slamming him off her bed with a pillow which he dogged effortlessly. Damn, why are kids so flexible? You missed, Rex mocked, making faces at her as Leah chased after him, with him releasing a torrent of screams as he ran for his life. I'll skin you alive, you little obnoxious specimen, called, language, young lady, her mother warned with a displeased frown on her face. And why are you not dressed yet? You know we're leaving in 2 hours, she complained, carrying Rex off his feet as he giggled excitedly. Leaving? Leah asked, confused. Don't tell me you forgot already? Seriously, Leah? Mom asked, with a brow raised. A mocking laugh from behind made Leah roll her eyes. Yelp. Told you she's a bird brain, her brother Trevor taunted. Thanks, Leah goaded, fighting the urge to give him the middle finger. Her mom would kill her if she does that. Fine, I'll prepare, she sighed, making her way back to her room. Once inside, she took a deep breath with her back resting on her door. She just couldn't understand why her mom was adamant about returning to her dad's hometown. The so-called father never contributed anything to her life aside from donating his sperm that led to her creation and finance, but yet her mom loved him like crazy. Love? What a joke, even in death, he still couldn't let go of them. Well, there was no harm in a change of environment. What's the worst that can happen anyway? Leah sat in the back seat of her mom's sedan watching the rain drizzle down the windscreen, lost in her world. It's been 4 hours since they left for Little Town and she was already restless. Though she was a bit claustrophobic, she could tell that wasn't the whole reason. For some strange reasons she felt restless, as if something big was coming her way. Let's just hope it's something good, she mumbled beneath her breath, resting her head against the windscreen, her eyes languidly resting on her siblings. Her brother Rex was busy playing video games on his iPhone. For a 9-year-old, he was extremely fast and nimble with his fingers, and she had to admit, he's really talented in gaming. She turned to face Trevor, who was sitting beside her in the back seat and was busy chatting with some girl he met on Facebook. She sighed once more, looking out. The rain was seriously not helping her mood. Does it always rain here? Leah asked her mom, who gave her a momentarily side glance before gluing her eyes back on the road. Don't know, I'm as clueless as you. Guess we have to live there to find out. Great. Leah groaned mentally. It was obvious her mom didn't know a clue about her husband. They just met, fell in love, and then he left when she gave birth to her, and then the whole routine kept repeating until Rex came along. Maybe if he didn't die, another would have come along. The only reason Leah agreed to come over to Little Town was because of the school. Back in her old school, she was so bullied that one time she skipped school for a whole week until her mom caught wind of everything. But it just got worse after that. The kids weren't merciful at all. They just hated her because she was just beautiful. So much proving the point that pretty hurts. Leah has brown hair she inherited from her mom that cascades down her shoulder in waves, and her eyes a rapturous shade of cerulean blue which she inherited from her dad along with her tall height. Her height deceives people so much that sometimes they mistake her for a 20-year-old when in reality she's actually 17. Rex has the same eyes as her but with blonde hair, he took from his father's side, but the little guy was insanely handsome. He was surely going to be a chick magnet in the future. While Trevor was the exact copy of her mother, with the same hazel-colored eyes and brown wavy hair. Suddenly something caught her attention. She saw a signpost with the words "Welcome to Little Town" written in bold italics. Leah let out a sigh she didn't know she was holding in. They're here at last. As if the weather knew her mood, the rain stopped abruptly. At least that's a good sign. What's that? Rex's tiny childish voice resonated, drawing her attention as she turned to sight what Rex was pointing at. It was a worn-out bungalow that was sitting in the wood that one could miss out if not looked at properly. But what was more eye-catching to the house was its appearance. The house was so eerie-looking that it would be a perfect place to shoot a horror movie. Probably an old house on the verge of collapse. Trevor, whose attention was attracted by the scene, also answered nonchalantly, "We could go check it out," Rex said, a mischievous glint in his eyes. "You ain't checking anything out, young man." Their mom had yet to finish her statement when she suddenly swerved to the left while they screamed. Thankfully their mom wasn't speeding, so she successfully took control of her brakes while the kids suffered from a minor whiplash. "Are you guys okay?" she asked, concerned as she parked the car to the side to check on her kids' injuries. "Aside from the fact I have a throbbing headache and a backache, I'm good," Leah moaned, rubbing her temple. "What was that?" Trevor whined, rubbing his neck while my mom checked on Rex, who looked fine. Curiously, Leah's eyes went to the road as she tried to figure out what came out of the woods that her mom had to dodge, risking their lives in the process. As if the figure knew what she was thinking, just before it disappeared into the wood it turned around and Leah gasped. It wasn't a human but an animal. Suddenly, their eyes met and she felt her blood run cold. "What is that, a wolf?" Leah blurted out. Leah had a feeling moving to Little Town was a bad idea, but she never thought it was this bad. Barely accepting the fact that she almost lost her life moments ago, she now had to come to terms that she's about to live in a town where wolves are constant strollers on the road. Thankfully they happened to come across a drugstore, so their mom had to go get some pain relievers and food to go along. Feeling stuffed inside, she walked out of the car, the cold air hitting her skin making her shiver. The air was moist and cold, but she liked it. It made her sober. She just had a lot going on in her head right now. "I know that look on your face," a voice said from behind, but she didn't need a prophet to tell her who it belonged to. "Thank God you know," she retorted, running her hands through her now slightly damp hair. "I know, but you know I have no choice." "The bungalow is your father's property," Leah scoffed at her mom's comment. "At least you had a choice of selling it, which you clearly didn't, considering we're on her way to go live in it." "How can you say that?" her mom asked, disbelief clearly written on her face. "You know that's the last thing your father left for us. It's the last reminder of his existence here on Earth. So sorry to disappoint you, but I can't just go ahead and sell something he told us as a matter of fact in his will to occupy," she snapped, gritting her teeth. She was on the edge of losing control, which she couldn't afford at the moment. It was unfair transferring her aggression on her daughter. Her brown eyes met Leah's and she saw the anger there. Leah sniffed, a blushy tone on her nose, probably as a result of the cold, but that didn't stop her from rubbing it as she sassied back. "Maybe if he had been a good father, I would have complied effortlessly with his will." "Leah?" her mom warned, an edge to her voice. Leah grimaced. "You know what, Mom? I'm not having this discussion with you. So can we leave for the Grand Palace already?" Her mom knew she was mocking her, but she couldn't do anything at all. Renard was a good lover, but he was never a good father nor husband, so she couldn't exactly blame her. Leah had every right to be angry. She practically forced the whole packing out thing on the kids. "Get in the car," Mom said to Rex, who apparently snuck his head out the car window hoping to get a piece of the juicy argument. "Our," Rex whined. "Guess I'm late," he said, disappointed he didn't get any of the juicy gossip. Leah ignored him and got in. Thankfully, Trevor discovering the ugly scowl on his sister's face didn't bother her. He knew better than to push her button at the moment. After a lot of inquiries and directions from the locals, they finally arrived. Rex was the first to jump out excitedly, followed by their mom and Trevor. Leah, taking a deep breath, reluctantly stepped out of the car looking around. "This should be it," her mom muttered, staring at some papers in her hand. Leah stared at the house. It was a two-story bungalow with its second story built into a sloping roof and surrounded by wide verandas. It's painted a deep brown and white on the windowsill, while the driveway was surrounded with carpet-level greenery. Leah couldn't help but gape at the huge trees and shrubs surrounding the building. Obviously, lack of care had weed growing all over. Even though she was still angry at this whole relocating thing, but she got to admit, this place was awesome. "I guess we're gonna do weeding?" Trevor asked, his voice edged with uncertainty as he glanced at the grasses. Obviously, their mom commented as they chuckled, oblivious to the eyes watching them from the shadow. It took them 4 hours to tidy the entire house and move their properties. They apparently cleaned till evening. Even though everyone was stressed out, but the end result was quite satisfying. The bungalow had 5 bedrooms, a living room, a basement, and a kitchen. It was obvious the house was built before her dad married her mom, or at least her dad had plans of increasing the family had he not died. 5 bedrooms? Leah chose to believe he intended increasing the family, at least that's what he does best, plant a seed and then vanish. But the lack of family pictures downstairs proved the fact he built this house before he started a family, or maybe he's that ashamed of his family he never bothered putting up their pictures on the wall. Exhausted, Leah climbed up the stairs sluggishly. She chose the room upstairs cause it had the best view of outside. Moreover, there was a large tree outside which thankfully was close enough to grab from her veranda. That would definitely come in handy whenever her mom grounds her. Her room, painted a pale green, was already coming off. She would need to redo the painting, but everything else was okay. At least her dad had the sense to furnish the house. The only thing she loved about this new home was the fact that everyone had their bathrooms and toilets, unlike their old home where they had to share one, and Rex had a weird fetish of playing games whenever he's in the toilet and could be stuck there for about an hour. So much misery. Walking into her balcony, she inhaled the sweet smell of nature. Thankfully, the house nearby was a duplex, so she didn't have to worry about a peeping Tom while undressing. But it was quite strange that no one had come in nor moved out of the house since they packed in. Was the owner absent? It would be nice to have a neighbor, a nice good-looking neighbor. Suddenly Leah felt the hairs on her arm stand on edge. She frowned. She knew this feeling a lot. Someone was watching her. She searched around but couldn't find anyone, but she couldn't just ignore the feeling of being watched. It wasn't a day yet, but she had a stalker already on her tail. Great! Heart pounding, she cautiously returned to her room, closing the French doors to the balcony. Her stalker was still out there. She could feel it. Leah, her mom's voice rang from downstairs, startling her. "Yes, Mom, go take out the waste. It's an eyesore, all right," she answered with her heart pounding furiously. Outside? Maybe this wasn't a bad idea. She could try finding out who was stalking her outside. Nervously, she rushed downstairs and grabbed the waste bag, leaving before her mom could suspect a thing. Thankfully, the recycle bin was just a few meters away from the house. Moreover, she had a 110 ml pepper spray in the pocket of her jacket and a taser for additional protection in case the first option fails. Sensing her stalker nearby, she clutched her pepper spray canister tightly. Perhaps because she was hypervigilant, she had a heightened awareness of her surroundings. Feigning ignorance of his presence, she approached the recycling bin and started sorting through her waste. She just needed the stalker to come closer, close, and now. With a quick turn, she sprayed directly into the assailant's face as he. "No, scratch that!" she screamed, falling immediately to her knees, rubbing her eyes. "I might not know karate nor taekwondo, but I have a pepper spray and a taser and I'm not afraid to use it, so back off," Leah warned with a feral growl, positioning her body in an attacking stance. "What was that for?" her stalker cursed furiously, rubbing her eyes. "Because you were obviously stalking me and I had to protect myself," she defended scrupulously. "I wasn't stalking you, I was following you because I wanted to be friends with you," the stalker spat, leaving Leah dumbfounded. Leah blinked, dazzled. Did she just jump to conclusion without being certain of the whole thing? "Why would you want to be friends with me?" she asked cautiously. "You don't even know me." Leah refused to believe she was wrong. She's certain that someone definitely was watching her in hiding, but now. "You moron, this is Little Town. In Little Town everyone knows one another, so it's a custom to welcome a newcomer, and I'm the one sent to do that," she explained, staggering to her feet. It was obvious she was having a hard time with her sight. Leah heaved, feeling guilty already. No wonder they haven't seen anyone since arriving their house. Everyone was in some sort of secret meeting preparing to welcome them. This was definitely a strange town. She wondered if her mom knows about this. "I'm sorry for spraying you," Leah apologized at last. "Apology accepted," she replied, flashing a toothy grin even though her appearance was scary. She was kinda sporting a snotty nose, reddish and swollen eyes with partially disheveled hair. "I'm Leah, Cassie, come on, let me help you to my place. My mom should have something to relieve that," Leah told her, taking Cassie by the hand and bringing her to her place, unknown of the curious eyes still staring at her from the shadow. "Dim light. Now!" he yelled, his mesmerizing, furious green eyes meeting hers. As if under some spell, she climbed back to the bed quietly and tugged the duvet over her shoulder. Seconds later, she was sound asleep. Asher sighed, then picked up his clothes that was scattered here and there, putting them on. Leaving the bedroom, he went into his study to meet his uninvited guests. "Wow," Gideon whistled, "that was an intense banging, . he exclaimed as soon as Asher came in. Asher looked up and flashed him a deadly glare. "I didn't look." He raised his hand in surrender. "Cross my heart as if you have a heart," the other uninvited guest sitting on the edge of Asher's desk taunted. "Seriously, you suck, bro. Do you have to remind me that every day?" Gideon sulked, a downcast expression on his face. There was a long silence, everyone immersed in their own world. If there was a human watching this scene at the moment, the person would definitely suffer from nosebleed. The men were so breathtakingly handsome that one could die fulfilled after viewing such a scene, most especially Asher. The guy had a compelling yet repelling aura at the same time. The guy was like some flower that could be watched only but not touched. He had a smooth, flawless, chalky skin alongside a head full of rich chocolate hair that felt like silk. His brows strongly arched and eyelashes so thick it could be illegal. His lips was pink and thin, but what was more alluring about him was his eyes, very deep and hypnotizing green eyes that looked like it could see through one's soul. Gideon and Dan had same chalky skin, but their beauty fell in comparison to Asher's, but each had their own distinct auras. Gideon had more of a gentle, ebullient, juvenile, and positive vibe, while Dan has a calm, calculative, mysterious but kind aura. But Asher could be described with just a term: bipolarish. Unstable as the waves of the sea, he was unpredictable. One couldn't guess his intentions. His fluctuating moods made him so dangerous, not to talk of his abilities. Why are you both here? He asked, gesturing at the both of them after the long silence. I caught him snooping around someone's house with his shadow, Dan explained, giving Gideon a playful kick at the butt. Hey, Gideon retorted, that wasn't snooping, I was just observing. Yet, observing with your creepy ability, Dan mocked, and Asher, whose mood was sour a while ago, laughed, vexing Gideon. Gideon had the shadow ability, which was the ability to shape, use and manipulate darkness, but so far his ability has done more harm than good to his reputation. He's known as the pervert vampire due to an unfortunate accident eons ago. It's strange, why are you snooping around someone's house? Asher asked, brow raised, evidence of the earlier smile erased without a trace. They moved in today, he replied. So? I just wanted to. Pervert, Asher called, this time earning a chortle from Dan. Gideon went red. Why won't anyone believe he wasn't a pervert? The locals are organizing the ritual for them tomorrow. Gideon finally dropped the bomb. Upon hearing that, the corner of Asher's mouth quirked while his brow furrowed. He clutched his fist. The witches were at it again. There was a displeased expression on Asher's face which the others noticed at once. The both knew what the ritual signified, even though the ignorant humans viewed it as just a plausible excuse to organize a party. It was a whole lot more than that. Once the acceptance ritual was performed on a certain person, he or she was now immune to the vampire's hypnosis. In one word, the vampires couldn't just go around taking people's blood, else the council would find out, unless the individual in question permits them, which the probability of that occurring is 1 out of 100. So how are they surviving? Animal blood and some other supplements known as human food. Unlike the folklores surrounding vampires' inability to consume human food, which has been proven false. They could consume human food without any harm being done to the body, but it was just like eating junk food. It contributed nothing to their body. Moreover, it was a good cover so humans couldn't question their diet amid their appearance. But there was a problem with animal blood. No matter how much animal blood they consumed, there was still this insatiable ache in them, the taste for human blood. Comparing human blood to animal blood was like asking a girl to choose between a boy and a toy. Moreover, there's this feeling that comes with drinking from a human compared to an animal's. Also, the amount of energy acquired from drinking human blood was 2 times greater than the energy acquired from drinking animals, which is why rogue vampire who feed on human blood till they're sucked dry are much stronger than the normal vampires and are often killed off by the hunters. So in order to prevent the human race from going extinct, an acceptable ceremony is held for a newcomer in which an elder, aka a witch in disguise, places a protection hex on the individual, which is often triggered when a vampire tries to take the individual's blood without permission, and in turn the council gets notified and sends out their army called hunters, who in turn finishes the vampire at the spot. But if the vampire is lucky enough or of a very high status, a trial is held where he or she will be determined guilty or not. This law was put in place to ensure no race is threatened or extinct. And it has been working, except the council are ignorant of one thing: Asher's second ability, hypnosis. Every vampire is born with a natural hypnotic ability which is rendered useless when used on an accepted individual, but that wasn't the case with Asher. His ability was so much potent that he could hinder the hex from triggering until he's done. which is how they've been getting their monthly supply of secret human blood in moderation. He was smart enough not to get greedy and trigger the council's suspicion. But what was more dangerous about Asher's ability is the fact he could hypnotize not only human but other vampires as well. A fact only Gideon and Dan, his closest and trusted allies, knows. All vampires have a distinct innate ability that comes to manifestation as something humans call superpowers, and most vampires has their abilities attuned to a single element. For example, a vampire attuned to a water element can never possess nor manipulate fire even as a second ability, but that wasn't the case with Asher. Asher was something out of this world. He alone possesses the ability to manipulate all four elements, which made him one of the most lethal and powerful vampire in the world and in Little Town. Imagine if Little Town made an enemy of Asher, they would still incur much damages and death even if they end up decapitating him. Perhaps in the future, there would come someone who would be able to challenge Asher, but at the moment he was not to be trifled with. "Don't even think about it," Asher warned, seeing the gleeful anticipation on Gideon's face. Without even being a seer, he could already guess what's going on in his mind. "Can't I just have one taste?" Gideon whined. "No," he bellowed aside from his ability. There was another way of drinking human blood, but it was much riskier. A vampire could drink a newcomer's blood before he or she is accepted, but it was risky cause there's eyes everywhere in Little Town, so you could get killed. Also, a vampire could lose control and kill their prey by draining them dry and still end up being killed by the council's hunter. The council exists for the purpose of balance not only in Little Town but in the entire world, and is founded by specifically hand-picked powerful humans and supernatural clan leaders. So in one word, it's another strong secret organization of its own. "I'll be careful," he pouted, his lips smiling coaxingly. Asher's gaze darkened at once, all humor draining from his face. He turned to look at Gideon. "I will not have my clan perish because of your idiotic death wish," he warned decisively. Gideon's heart sank. He knew that Asher's decision was final, but he couldn't help it. He had this urgent burning need for human blood. Upon consuming tons of animal blood in the woods, he wasn't anything near the word satiated. The urge was driving him nuts, so since Asher won't help him, he'll have to figure out another way. "Fine then," he murmured. Wrapping the shadow around him, he disappeared before Dan could protest. "Follow him, don't allow him do anything stupid," Asher ordered as Dan nodded and left. Left alone, Asher sighed before heading back to his bedroom. He needed to bury himself in Caroline's body. He needed a release right now. She tumbled into the pack house, eyes wearily searching for some figure until it locked onto her target. Swiftly, she approached him. "I lost Daniel," she said, bowing her head in shame. "What do you mean you lost him?" Ryan growled. "He suddenly leaped off and ended up tricking me off his tail as if he had a mind of his own," she explained, but Ryan stared at her in disbelief. "That's impossible. He's in his cursed weak and still in his primitive form," he muttered, trying to think of a cogent reason that'll explain all this. Daniel was the alpha of the Silver Pack and Ryan was his beta and also the leader of the Silver Guards. The only reason he had left Daniel to be taken care of by one of his promising disciples was so he could resolve some issues in the pack. But it seems he overestimated her abilities. "Judith," he called, his voice low and grim as she bowed her head further. She could feel his dominance aura oozing off him, urging her to submit. Even though Ryan might not be an alpha but a beta, he's the second in command and second most dominant, while she's an ordinary delta, third in command and in training for the beta position, so she couldn't fight off his aura. She found herself kneeling before him, eyes lowered. It's seen as a disrespect or a challenge looking straight in the eyes of a werewolf higher than you in rank, most especially alphas and betas. Assemble the elite fighters. You know how dangerous he is in his cursed week and the repercussion we would suffer if he harms any local in little town, cause the council won't be lenient with him when it involves the death of a human. Judith blinked, not sure what she was hearing. She had expected him to punish or scold her for failing her tasks. Unexpectedly he showed her mercy. Yes, Beta Ryan, she answered gratefully, bowed and left in a hurry with the urge to prove her worth. A smile tugged at his lips, but he couldn't afford one at the moment. He knew Judith would get Daniel this time. The girl had a persistent and tough personality, which was why he had taken her in as his Delta, his second in command. Suddenly Ryan frowned. Daniel shook them off his tail? That was more confusing and less. His eyes widened at once. Had Daniel found his mate? The Cursed Week is a special curse placed by the Moon Goddess on all alpha werewolf, which happens once every 3 months. The curse causes all alpha werewolf, both male and female, to remain stuck in their wolf form for 4 days, unable to shift back to human. In that state, the alpha werewolf becomes nothing but bloodthirsty savages. They have no sense of pack or loyalty, as they lose complete control of themselves, and the only thing on their minds is blood and killing. That craze experienced in the Cursed Week was no different than the craze experienced by a newborn werewolf in transition, but it was a bit different in the sense that the Cursed Week would involuntarily stop whenever an alpha finds his mate. This curse was initiated by the Moon Goddess during the rejection zone period. The rejection zone period was a time when there was a huge influx of alphas rejecting their mates, seeing them as nothing but their weakness and downfall. It's a known fact that most alphas are extremely aggressive, territorial, antagonist and cruel to their enemies. In fact, centuries ago, there was an alpha famed as the Blood Alpha who had a fetish of killing his enemy's mate until fate played a cruel card on him. Perhaps it was the Moon Goddess punishing him for his crimes, but he never knew his own mate was beside him for a long time until he fell badly for her. Eventually left with no choice, he marked and bonded with her, and that was when his enemies made their move. They took his mate away, ravished and killed her before he could come to her rescue. The death of his mate devastated him, and for the first time ever, he felt the pain he inflicted on others and eventually ended his own life. To a werewolf, a mate is like the other half of their soul, and with time becomes the most important person in their life. Once marked and bonded, they become linked to each other for life. When one mate dies, the other doesn't actually die, but the loneliness, emptiness, and pain makes them wish for death. Sometimes the grief and agony drives them crazy, in which they will need to be killed for others' safety. So most alphas preferred rejecting their true mates, but instead relieve their loneliness and pleasures with a fill-in mate whom he or she has no strings attached to and can't be used against them. Rejecting a mate wasn't a child's play at all, cause it causes excruciating pain for both parties and is a huge taboo. Rejecting a mate is akin to giving the Moon Goddess the middle finger, cause she's the one who gifts the other half of one's soul in their mate. Disappointed at the turnout, the Moon Goddess decided to teach all alpha werewolves a lesson. She placed a curse on alphas. They were to remain in their wolf form for 4 days in every 3 months until they found their true mates. This was a measure taken by the Moon Goddess to ensure no alpha messes with their mate bond again, and so far, it's being effective. Cases of alphas rejecting their mates was so rare now that the rejection zone now seemed like a folklore told to the younger generation. Ryan didn't know how he got inside his office, but he plopped down on the swivel chair, resting his legs on the desk as soon as he arrived. He groaned, rubbing his temple. Hearing the news from Judith had him develop a migraine right away. He just hopes Daniel has found his mate, else things are about to get messy. Unknown to them all, a figure lay on the grass, naked from his head to his toe. A drop of dew meticulously flowed from a plant and dropped on his eyelid, stirring him awake. He slowly unveiled his eyes and blinked, his long thick eyelashes fluttering like the wings of a butterfly, but then his eyes, as blue as the sea, was so calm and captivating. This scene was so breathtaking and out of this world that it was quite a shame there wasn't a photographer to capture this surreal and exotic moment. But it seemed this ethereal beauty wasn't done with his sleep, cause he closed his eyes once again, but the plants, as if in cahoots, started dropping dews after dews on him, forcing him awake. He sat up at once, awake and dazzled by his surrounding. He promptly looked down at his hands before he searched the rest of his body. He was human again. But how was that possible? It was just the second day of his cursed week. He still had 2 more days to go. He looked up at the sky. He has imprinted. In just a few moments, countless emotions surged through him. He was confused, happy, worried, angry, then anxious. What was going on? Suddenly a memory flashed through his mind. Stuck in his wolf form, he had dreamt of a goddess. In that dream, he was in a pit with no source of escape. His only form of entertainment was the open sky, until someone casted a shadow, and then he looked up and saw her. She crouched down, trying to get a closer look at him before extending her hand to him. Daniel stared at those smooth long hands before meeting her eyes. Her alluring blue eyes spoke of assurance and longing for him, and just like a moth drawn to a flame, he gave her his hand. As soon as his hand met hers, he found himself suddenly in front of her, and peace like no other flooded him. Daniel felt at home, as if an empty void in him has filled. He reached out his hand to touch her face, to run his hands through her rich chocolate hair, to hold her in his arms and protect her from this crazy world, but she disappeared. Great, Daniel groaned. He imprinted at last, but can't remember the face of his mate. His dream was hazy. The only thing he could remember was her vivid blue eyes and chocolate hair. Chocolate, he smiled. He loves chocolate. He stood groaning with the effort. His muscles ached terribly, and he couldn't complain, cause he knew it was from running for 2 days now. Suddenly his body went rigid and his gaze darkened. Somebody. No, not somebody, but some people were coming, and they were armed. His body tensed while he clutched his fist, preparing to go for battle, but as soon as their scent hit his nostrils, he relaxed. A slight smile tugged at his lips. They were here for him. Judith hurried. She could sense where the alpha's scent was the strongest. He was nearby. She clutched her weapon by the side. The alpha was extremely dangerous at this state, and they had to be very careful if they intend surviving. She raised a hand as a gesture, deploying the warriors to their various positions. Judith took a deep breath before jumping out of her position with the intention of taking the target by surprise, but it seemed she was the one taken by shock instead. She stood mouth agape and weapon hanging loosely at the side, transfixed at the scene. Her alpha was human and naked. She gulped, or at least she tried to. Why was she feeling hot? Keep looking, and a fly could live in there soon, Alpha Daniel said, flashing her a smile that made her almost trip on a root. She slapped her forehead mentally. God, she's so stupid. Daniel chuckled. the girl was totally smitten. Alpha she greeted before handling him a cloth one of her subordinate brought along. She looked away as the alpha dressed up blushing furiously. Perspiration beaded her forehead. Why was this happening to her of all people? She fought internally. Judith wasn't stupid. She knew the fact that the alpha was able to be in his human state right now was probably because he found his mate. She knew the alpha wasn't crazy enough to reject his mate and suffer the cursed week all over again, probably till eternity if such a scenario happens. Daniel, sensing her inner battle, didn't bother her much after he was done. It was just a crush. Thousands of female werewolves were crushing on him every day. Moreover, the feeling will dissipate once she finds her mate. At the moment he has more pressing need, which was to recover his strength and go find his mate. He could feel her presence even though it was faint, so she had to be in Little Town. The fact that he could sense her meant the moon goddess has already sent her to him, even though his mate was ignorance. My love, we would be together soon, he thought with a smile on his face before leaving the wood with his pack. Leah avoided her mom's threatening gaze for the nth time. Was it really her fault? It was just an act of self-defense. How do you feel? Her mom asked, looking over Cassie's eyes. Like two red-hot pieces of steel being pushed into my eyes and a blowtorch applied to my face. How does that sound? Cassie winced, tears welling in her eye. Mom frowned at the sight. Her daughter really did a lot of damage to Cassie. She snapped at Leah, wagging a finger. Do you know spraying an innocent victim in the face can be a crime? You could be charged with assault, she rebuked sternly. Sweeping back with her hand some strands of hair that had fallen on her face, blocking her left view. You should be thankful Cassie is not suing, she continued. Leah heaved an exasperated sigh, looking away. Arguing with her mom in this state was pointless and a total waste of energy. The woman was unwavering and stubborn as a bull. Ugh, Torians. Mrs. Jenny, please don't be angry with Leah. It was my fault sneaking up on her like that and scaring her, Cassie pleaded on Leah's behalf with quivering lips and an irresistible puppy face. Dang it! Jenny thought, this child was so irresistible. Without even realizing it, her anger dissipated at once, so she agreed readily. Fine, you should be grateful, she snarled at Leah before helping Cassie to her feet. Let's go rinse this stupid stuff off your face. Thankfully a shampoo can cut the oil resin, she explained, leading Cassie carefully to the direction of the bathroom. Once they left, a rhythmic mocking clap came from behind as Trevor, who sat leisurely with his legs dangling from the outside of the couch, flung a subtle jibe. Nice. Keep up the good work and Mom will age in a day or two. Leah rolled her eyes and hurled back, thanks for the info. Dumbass. Though Leah and Trevor were blood siblings, with Leah older with 2 years, but the both never met eye to eye. They often had altercations, which always ends with Leah winning or their mom threatening them to knock it off. Amusement played on Trevor's face. He would be fulfilled if it meant taunting Leah for the rest of her life. You know, for someone who claims to be smart, you're pretty stupid spraying an innocent victim. He continued, if I was Cassie, I would have your ass last in jail for at least 2 days, but thankfully you're not, Cassie, so go drink river water, she retorted, flashing him a wide fake smile until her muscles ached, but beneath that calm facade, she was on the verge of exploding. Trevor's expression darkened, and just when he opened his mouth, his mom came in with Cassie, so he backed out. Coward, Leah jeered to his hearing while he balled his fist, silently swearing to get back at her in the future. Leah ignored her brother and focused on Cassie, whom she had to admit was really good looking. She had a baby face, accentuated by her fine blonde hair, baby blue eyes and a petite body. She was simply adorable. After moments of observing her, Leah found out Cassie had a one-track mind and a bubbly personality. She was simply a breath of fresh air and Leah couldn't help but want to be really friends with her. "You all are really coming to the acceptance ceremony, right?" she asked expectantly. Jenny scratched her head awkwardly. "I don't know," she breathed. "I don't want us to impose on." "You are absolutely not imposing," she chirped in with her high-pitched voice that had Leah wincing. How could her throat survive that? "Moreover," Cassie continued, "it's a must tradition in Little Town unless you want to be outcast by the locals," she warned with a deep frown. "Why are they so intense with such lame party? Is this some sort of a cult or what?" Trevor asked, attracting everyone's scowl, so he slowly leaned back on the couch. Even though Leah felt like kicking Trevor for his poor choice of words, but she had to admit his question was legit. This acceptance of a thing was indeed suspicious. What kind of town organizes such ceremony? A cult or no occult, the ceremony is done with good intentions. The main purpose of the ceremony is to ward off evil beings from taking control of your mind and body. Moreover, they won't draw blood from any of you, so you shouldn't worry for your safety, Cassie explained her best, hoping Jenny would have a change of heart. Leah could sense her mom's internal battle. She was contemplating, weighing the pros and cons of this whole thing. "Fine," Jenny said before adding, "but on one condition." "Okay?" Jenny said straightforwardly. "You tell me what really goes down in that ceremony and also become friends with my son, Trevor." Hearing that, Trevor threw up the water he was drinking from with a shocked expression. "You," Leah murmured, disgusted to the core. She wiped off the little droplets that had fallen on her with her hand. "No way, I don't accept that," he objected firmly. "My decisions are final, young man," Jenny concluded before he could even raise an argument. Stung and quivering with embarrassment, he ground his teeth in fury as he left for his room, banging the door behind him so hard the house shook. Least affected by Trevor's outburst, Jenny focused all attention on Cassie. "So do we have a deal or not?" Cassie smiled widely. "Deal," taking Jenny's hand in a firm but warm handshake. Nor of them knew how relieved Cassie was for successfully accomplishing her mission. "Fine then, my family and I will be there for the acceptance ceremony," Jenny assured her confidently. Taurians are born between April 21 and May 21, and belong to the earth element of the zodiac, along with Virgo and Capricorn. The Earth sign collective are practical, stoic, determined, ambitious, and materialistic. Taurus are famous for their stubbornness, but there's more to them than that. They're a bit of dark horse. "Wow," was all Leah kept saying as she walked into the clearing. Why didn't anyone inform her that the acceptance ceremony was nothing but a bonfire party? "Clearly occultic," Trevor affirmed, staring mouth agape at the scene. The large clearing was crowded with people, mostly wearing animal print attires and busy socializing with one another. "You didn't tell us there was a dress code?" Jenny cried out, feeling they were overdressed in their simple party wear. Cassie chuckled at Jenny's statement. At the moment she was acting as their tour guide. "Don't worry, you can request for one after you've been accepted." Even though Cassie explained, it still didn't stop Jenny from having a nervous breakdown. Thankfully her son Rex distracted her. "Mom, look," Rex called, pointing to a certain figure. She followed his direction only to have her gaze rest on a woman wearing a lion head mask. "Wow," Leah murmured, amazed. "This is insane." Currently most people were watching them with curiosity. It seems not everyone knew them yet. "That's our mayor, I think you should go see her," Cassie explained, referring to the woman they saw wearing the lion head mask earlier. "What?" Trevor roared. "Your mayor is also an occultic." Leah slapped Trevor's mouth before he could finish his statement, attracting numerous inquisitive stares. Leah smiled awkwardly, waving them off as they went about their business. She beat her mom by leaning forward and grabbed Trevor by the ear while he yelped in pain. "Mention the word occult again and I'll crush your balls before your very eyes," Leah threatened crudely, making sure to lay more emphasis on occult and balls. Leah's threat was so savage that her mom had to cover Rex's ear while Cassie held back a laugh. Jenny couldn't scold Leah for her language, knowing Trevor wouldn't stop until he was rebuked strongly. So Jenny came up with what she thought was the perfect plan to keep Trevor under hold. "Leah, you're in charge. Keep your brothers safe," she ordered before Leah could object. She then turned and faced Cassie. "I trust they won't misbehave under your watch," Jenny said, putting Cassie in charge also, an additional fortification in case the first one fails before leaving to go see the mayor. The amount of trust Jenny had in Cassie stunned Leah so much. How could they have bonded so much in such a short while? But Jenny made a mistake. She forgot that Cassie was a teen too, just as her kids. "I don't think I need to say much, no time for long words." Adios, Trevor waved and vamoosed before Leah could even comprehend what was going on. "Traitor!" Leah yelled after him. "Great! So much for babysitting," she sighed, her eyes falling on Rex, her only loyal family standing by her side. "I'm guessing it's just you and I, buddy." She reached over and gave Rex's dirty blonde hair a tousle, but the boy's next comment had Leah vomit blood. "Nah," Rex nodded negatively. "I'm only here cause Cassie hasn't agreed to our date yet." Cough cough. "What? What are children learning these days?" That's when Leah looked up and saw Rex staring at Cassie lovey-dovey while the lady in question was looking away, scratching her neck awkwardly with a faint blush on her face. Leah blinked, not sure what she was seeing. "You imp!" Leah smacked him lightly on the forehead while he let out an aggrieved expression. She sighed worriedly. The little chick magnet wasn't 10 yet, but he was already thinking of dating. Leah feared suddenly for the future of women. "Let's go to the table over there." Cassie pointed at one of the many tables filled with mouth-watering delicacies. "Wow!" Leah moaned, staring at the heavenly dishes, already salivating at the sight of the blueberry orange muffins. With great expectation, she was about to dig in when a voice from behind halted her mission. "I'm guessing she's the center of attraction tonight." Leah turned to face a pretty blonde-haired girl who had really big boobs, with two other girls standing beside her respectively. "Yes, she is." the girl on her right-hand side answered. Leah stared at them confused. Were they discussing about her or trying to start a conversation with her? Well, it wouldn't hurt to be nice. So she decided to take the first step. "Hi, I'm Leah. I don't remember asking for your name, loser." the pretty girl spat, leaving Leah dumbfounded. "Okay? Trust me, I don't remember provoking you either." Leah breathed and slowly took back her extended hand. She had tried offering for a handshake. Red alert number 1, bully spotted. "But just so you know, cause my face is hardly forgettable, my name is Caroline, and after tonight you can go back to wherever you came from while my dazzling fame continues to spread abroad," she haughtily announced with an mocking grin glued on her face. "Okay," Leah noted. "Bully 1 is named Caroline and is a huge narcissistic drama queen who may be high on a drug called ego. So, mind your place, loser." "Ta-ta!" she squealed, causing Leah to jerk out of her reverie. She gave Leah an "I've got my eyes on you" gesture and stride away, followed by her minions who didn't even bother concealing their disgust towards her. "Oh, don't mind Caroline, though she looks that way on the outside but she's really kind inside." Cassie, who was silent all these while, spoke up. Leah, who was unbothered by the dumb Barbie and her followers, shrugged innocently. "I don't mind at all, but I'd love if she had more brains than boobs." Cassie laughed and consciously found her eyes checking out Leah's boobs. Leah, suddenly aware of Cassie's perverted gaze, wrapped her hands protectively around her chest. "What are you staring at?" she yelped. "Oh, nothing. It just seems you have more brain than boobs," Cassie teased while Leah tried to lunge at her, but Rex was quick to put himself in between, shielding Cassie with his short body. Leah found this scene amusing and also nerve-wracking. They weren't even an item yet and he was already taking the girlfriend's side. Leah frowned. What was she saying? They would never be an item. "Cass, let's go over there," Rex suggested, beaming a smile at Cassie, who couldn't even resist his charm and agreed right away, leaving Leah to feud for herself. Leah scoffed. He already had a nickname for her? Where was the love between siblings? Frustrated, she began to dish out her food. She would stress eat tonight since no one cared about her anymore. Suddenly, she felt a presence behind her and turned around only to feel all air leave her lungs. "Wow, he's so handsome." That was the last thought she had before her world went blank. "Ugh!" Leah groaned, lifting her weak and heavy body. She frowned at the somewhat familiar surrounding and suddenly sprang up, almost toppling over from dizziness. Ah yes, she remembered coming to the acceptance party. She recalled other events that occurred, including the egoistic Barbie encounter, but she couldn't remember going to sleep. The last thing she remembered. Damn, she cursed, rubbing her temple. She had a splitting headache the moment she tried to recollect what she did last and how she fell asleep. It was suspicious. It was not like her to fall asleep in an unfamiliar place, moreover in a party. The noise wouldn't allow her to sleep a wink at all, but she somehow felt she fell in a deep slumber in such a short time. Strange enough, she felt weak and sour, especially in her neck region. It felt like a large needle was pierced into her skin, retracted and then stitched up, but no matter how much she searched, she couldn't find evidence of such speculation on her body. Was she being paranoid? Leah. Hearing her name being called snapped her back to reality, and she found Cassie coming her way, huffing and puffing. "Where the hell have you been?" Cassie roared, drawing people's attention. She was so fluttered that even Leah noticed and bit down on her lower lip. Cassie was angry. "I'm really sorry, I got carried away," Leah apologized with her gaze lowered. She couldn't just tell Cassie of her stupid speculation, else she'll think she's crazy. Heartbeat slowly returning to normal, Cassie glared at Leah, but her pitiful pout made her anger melt right away. "Come on, let's go, the ceremony has already started," Cassie said, reaching out a hand for Leah to grab on, but her eyes suddenly narrowed when she saw a red stain on Leah's neck. "Is that blood on your neck?" Cassie reached out, but Leah subconsciously jumped from her touch. "Sorry," she smiled bashfully at Cassie's shocked expression. Leah mentally face-palmed at her attitude. Why was she behaving like this? The girl was just trying to help. Cassie in return smiled like nothing happened. "It's okay," she waved it off. Leah strained her neck, trying to get a view of the so-called blood. "It's almost at your back," Cassie from a distance directed her. Thankfully she had worn a black off-shoulder little black dress, so after stretching and straining her neck for a while, she located it. There was a small patch of red on her neck which had been smeared down her back. It wasn't so much that Leah wondered at Cassie's sharp sight. What would have taken others a close-up view, she saw it from afar clearly. Wow, she envied such sight. I don't think it's blood cause I'm clearly not injured, moreover I saw some teens carrying cans of paint earlier. I think one of them with a red paint might have touched me with their smeared hands. Leah lied smoothly without blinking an eye, though her heart thumped badly that she thought it would leap out of her chest. Ah, must be Cassie bought her idea, or so she thought. She brought out a handkerchief out of the pocket of her jean short, dabbed it in water from one of the water can on the table and started wiping away the stain. You don't have to, Leah said, feeling awkwardly with someone rubbing her skin like that with body pressed closely to hers. Leah was straight, but this was the first time a girl was this close to her aside from her mother. The little girlfriends she had back in her old town were too sophisticated and turned out to be scheming backstabbers she eventually abandoned in the end. Head bent shyly, she decided to look up and discovered with great shock that Cassie's skin was really good. Her skin was so soft and smooth with no blemish. Did she have pores? Leah was curious. She stared at her inquisitively, coming closer and closer. Suddenly a soft breeze blew and wafted Cassie's scent into her nostrils. She smelled like vanilla with a hint of mint. Was that from her cologne or hair shampoo? She pondered. What are you doing? Cassie asked, brow arched suspiciously, and that was when Leah realized she was unconsciously sniffing Cassie's hair. She froze. Did she just smell her hair? Creepy. She cleared her throat awkwardly, dusting off invisible dirt from Cassie's hair. You got something on your hair, and as usual, Cassie believed her. Done. You're good as new, Cassie announced, stepping away from her. We should be going, replying with a nod. Leah went along with her, noticing with minimal details the newly set up bonfires, much larger than the previous ones. For how long were they planning to party? She wondered. A few minutes later they arrived the initiation ground, but Leah was dazzled at the large crowd that gathered around, blocking the entrance. They were stuck, but that was until a man in front noticed her and gave way for her to pass. This kind gesture caused a domino effect that lasted till a path was created for her to go through. Sucking in a cold breath, she started walking through the cleared path, realizing for the first time how nerving it was to be the center of attention. She suddenly wished she was wearing a tinted glass atlas. Their gazes were scorching. Trying not to show she was breaking out in sweats, she doubled her steps, reaching her destination in a flash. She saw her mom already going through her own acceptance. A middle-aged woman wearing a long brown-colored fox fur dress that literally sweeps the ground whenever she walks stood before her mom. She murmured some inaudible words which Jenny said yes to before rubbing some slimy stuff on her forehead, followed by a loud shout from the crowd. Leah flinched when she noticed how hysterical the crowd was. Was this the exception? She thought. She suddenly wondered if Trevor went through the same initiation, considering his negative stand on this acceptance of a thing. Maybe he wasn't entirely wrong with his belief. This acceptance ceremony did look a tad occultic. She just hoped they weren't getting themselves into trouble. Leah was having second thoughts. She began retreating slowly until her body slammed into someone. She turned only to see Cassie blocking her only view of escape. She placed a hand on her shoulder and rubbed it gently as if seeing through her thoughts. Their eyes met as they communicated telepathically, though no words was said, but Cassie's assuring look comforted and strengthened her. She inhaled deeply and finally took a bold step forward. The initiator was already done with her mother, whom was standing behind her, urging Leah with her eyes to be bold. "Do you wish to be protected?" the initiator asked as soon as she stepped into a marked circle with a triangle in the middle enclosing the both of them. "Protected from what?" she sassied mentally. "Make a choice or forever hold your peace." The initiator continued, and it took every will in Leah not to laugh right now. Oh, they were saying wedding vows now. As if the initiator noticed what was going on, she frowned while Leah assumed a straight face devoid of emotions. "Yes, I wish to be protected," she declared, unamused, staring straight at the imitator's eyes and discovered her features. She had a few wrinkles on her face that was hardly recognizable at first. It had to take one a good second glance to notice that. Her shimmering ash hair had Leah question if she had dyed her grey hairs, cause it was now apparent the woman was past middle age, but how she was still able to stand strongly on her foot puzzled Leah. The woman even had more stamina than her. "Child of light," she called, drawing Leah's attention. "Yes?" she answered, confused on who she was referring to. But when she saw the woman's yellow teeth, probably from tobacco consumption, moving again, she understood at once she was being summoned. "Do you wish to be protected from the darkness, from those who don't sleep at night until the light is extinguished?" she asked again, collecting some sort of slimy mud she had taken out of a broken coconut shell which was smeared on her ring finger. Leah replied positively again. She eyed the substance cautiously, feeling the urge to take out her pepper spray. Was it too late to flee out of here? She flinched when she felt something cold being rubbed on her forehead in the shape of some strange character. The sudden contact jerked her out of her daydreams. The slime was cool to the touch, like some sort of menthol. She suddenly wondered how this crappy-looking slime would taste like if she took some into her mouth. "Focus!" she scolded herself mentally. "Taste that? What are you? An animal?" Suddenly, the hand rubbing the character on her forehead stiffened, alerting Leah immediately. "What's wrong?" Leah looked up at her initiator's eyes and regretted it immediately. The woman's gaze bore into hers with blazing intensity, as if she could see into the depth of her soul. Suddenly, her lips moved. "Why is there corruption in you?" she whispered to Leah, an involuntary shudder running down her spine. She frowned, trying to make sense of her comment, but before she could ask her question, an ear-splitting roar came from the crowd, almost destroying her eardrums. "Has she being accepted?" Judging from the excited shout from the crowd, it seems like. Then why did she make such a statement? Even though Leah have no clue of this town's crazy customs, but she was clever enough to notice that this ceremony was done to ward off evil possessing a person. Then why did the priest or so-called initiator perform the rite? She could have just rejected her and tell everyone she has an evil inside. Unless this ceremony was fake and she was just mumbling. Yes, that must be it. The momentarily distracted Leah turned to give the initiator a piece of her mind, but to her horror discovered she was nowhere to be found. But to her delight, the party restarted in full swing. It was obviously full blazing party mode. Jugs of booze were brought in from wherever they've been hiding it all night. Party music blasted from the speakers while strung round twinkling lights hung at strategic points gave off a colorful ambience. Leah gulped. They definitely knew how to organize a party. She looked around nervously, searching for her mom. Leah knew there was no way her mom would let them stay, especially when the booze is involved. Moreover, they've completed their initiation, there was no more reason to stay. When Leah couldn't find Jenny, she figured out she must have gone in search of Trevor, who must have snuck out after his initiation. Of them three, Trevor was the most impulsive and reckless, so it was no wonder her mom must have left her behind to go look for him, probably with Rex's hand secured safely in hers. Well, since her mom wasn't here yet, she could have a little fun before she arrives. So Leah joined the crowd, who was jumping, screaming, and dancing to the party beat. "Hey," someone said to her from behind, interrupting her when she was just getting started with this party. "Hi," she replied curtly, hoping the stranger would take that hind and buzz off. Happy acceptance, the girl congratulated, obviously pretending to be oblivious to her cold reception. "Fine," Leah sighed. She would be nice this once, since this one was not like the egoistic Barbie from earlier. "Thanks." Leah flashed a smile warmer than her previous response to your acceptance, she said, toasting to a drink, and offered another to Leah, which she turned down politely. "No, thanks. My mom would skin me alive." The girl rolled her eyes, sipping her drink leisurely. "Hello, don't be such a buzzkill, you could always apologize to mama later. What's the worst that can happen anyway?" she snarked. Exhilarated with the urge to prove she wasn't a party pooper, she snatched the drink from the girl and downed it in one gulp, causing the crowd to cheer at her performance. The girl whistled at her action. "Wow, that was intense." Blushing from the alcoholic effect, she stared down at the girl. The girl wasn't exactly good looking, if anything she looked too boyish. She was toned and muscular, her blonde hair kept in a pixie cut and her eyes luminously large and dark. She was wearing a dark jean with an oversized polo shirt, totally different from the people dressed in their animal print designs. Unfortunately, her boyish figure belied her femininity. Her voice was incredulously deep but pleasant to the ears, not to talk of her boobs. Judging from her attitude, Leah knew at once she's a tomboy. As if in cahoots, people started raising toasts to her, offering her drinks upon drinks until she couldn't afford to drink anymore. Her mom was totally going to kill her. Where was she, by the way? Feeling tipsy, Leah knew at once the alcohol had started to work its magic. She walked out of the dancing ground and plopped down on a nearby seat. "Hey," the tomboy called, approaching her again. "What now? What's Z this time?" she slurred, her articulation currently sloppy. "Wanna have fun?" she inquired, a strange glint in her eyes. "What fun?" Leah asked curiously. The tomboy inched closer, a huge bunny smile on her face. "Ever heard of the haunted house of Little Town? We could have a lot of fun and adventure in there." Hearing that name sent shivers down her spine, but thanks to the alcohol she couldn't make sense of anything. The only she understood was fun and adventure. "So what do you say?" She pushed for an answer. "Fun," Leah babbled. "Then, I'm taking that as a yes," the tomboy concluded, helping Leah to her foot. A huge malevolent smirk fell on the tomboy's face, which Leah didn't fail to capture, but she tried to tell herself it was the alcohol scattering her thoughts and not the growing feeling of fear or concern she felt toward her. So, like a lamb to the slaughter, she followed sheepishly, not knowing the outcome of tonight was going to change history forever. Warning: gory scene ahead. Back to present. Gathering courage, she grabbed a nearby branch, trying to climb a tree. "At least wolves can't climb trees," she thought, when she felt something grab her leg. She shrieked and tried kicking off its hold on her leg, but instead its claws dug into her skin as she let out a sharp cry. Distracted, she lost her balance and slipped from the tree, landing on the ground with a loud thud. "Ground?" No, no, no. Leah sat up at once, wincing at the pain at her leg, but that was nothing compared to the fear that crept her heart when her eyes met glowing brown eyes. "Oh God!" she cried. Is this how her life was going to end? She knew it was a bad idea coming here, but she was just too intoxicated to care. There was a reason why haunted houses were avoided by sensible people, but she had bluntly and stupidly arrived to her death. They were exploring the haunted house when they heard a deep guttural growl. The next they know, they were being chased by a rabid wolf who was keen on hunting them now. Hyperventilating, Leah tried to run but tripped on a root and fell face flat on the floor. Ouch! She winced but didn't have time to check her wounds, cause the low rumble from the wolf dragged her back to reality. She was really in deep. The wolf didn't lunge at her, just circling and watching her quietly and intently. It was probably figuring out the slowest and pleasurable way to end her, since they were bloodthirsty savages. Suddenly, their eyes met, sending a shudder down her spine. She tried to avert her eyes, having read somewhere that one shouldn't look a wolf in the eye, cause it's seen as a challenge and doesn't end too well, but it was too late. The wolf leaped towards her, which she narrowly escaped but incurred some injuries. She looked down on her stomach. To her horror, she discovered her clothes were soaking with blood. She sucked in a cold breath, leaning on a nearby tree. Thankfully the moon was bright tonight, illuminating the whole woods that one could see without the aid of a torchlight. Sorrowfully, she sighed. She was really going to die on such a beautiful night. She glanced at the wolf and swore she saw a bone-chilling smile on its face. She's definitely dead meat. The scent of her blood seemed to excite the wolf with the need to ravage her, and it acted upon it, launching its second attack. This time it pushed the escaping Leah down to the ground, its powerful jaw snap and slobber just inches from her face as she struggled to push it away. Successfully launching a kick that tossed it a few meters away from her, she cowered away, squinching at every movement she made. She clasped her stomach tightly, she was bleeding profusely. The wolf had slashed deeper at her stomach and arm during its second attack. She snorted, so this was where she would actually end up? It was quite funny. She suddenly realized she hasn't done a lot of things in her lifetime. Heck! She hasn't even had her first kiss yet. Lost in her trance, she slid her hands unconsciously into the pocket of her dress and took out the mini lead pocket touch. Earlier, before coming to the acceptance party, she had ransacked the basement and found this item along with other strange items that probably belonged to her dad. She had taken a fancy to the touchlight due to the intricate logo crafted on its side and kept it in the pocket of her dress, hoping to study it when she returns. But at last, she was studying it on the verge of death. The mini torch was in the form of a stylus pen with gold coating and a logo of a small humanoid creature carrying a quiver of arrows on its side. The logo was fascinating, definitely a masterpiece. The wolf stood on its hind limb, preparing to launch its final attack. The kick from Leah was infuriating, so it hoped to finish her this time with one clean sweep. It growled, propelled itself madly towards her. Concurrently, Leah chose that moment to spontaneously lit the torch, its beam landing straight on the wolf's eye. Immediately, a long, loud, high-pitched cry rent the air. The scream, so inhumane and distressing that it caused her to close her ears with her hands. She recognized that sound right away. It was the scream of someone in pain. Did the torchlight hurt it? She pondered. She had never heard of a common torch having the ability to hurt a wolf unless this wasn't an ordinary torchlight at all. There must be more to it than the eyes can tell, she thought, realizing she has tumbled upon a rare gem. If there was anything she learned in Little Town in this few hours, is probably the fact that nothing in this town was normal. There seemed to be a lot of secret paranormal activities going on and no one was complaining. Leah realized she might have a chance to stop this rabid animal from consuming her body. At least she wants her body intact even if she dies eventually and not in the belly of some animal. With a killing intent, the wolf rose again, but this time she stared it straight in the eyes, hoping her feelings would be conveyed. This time she wasn't scared, she was angry and would fight to death. As if it understood her message clearly, it roared in protest, but when it saw Leah's determined and attacking stance, the wolf slowly backed away and then ran off. Once it was nowhere to be found and never returning, she slumped against a tree with her chest heaving, exhaustion taking over her body. She had fought a good fight. Suddenly she coughed, sputtering large amount of blood. She wiped her lips with the back of her hand. Even though she emerged victoriously, she suffered a great loss, one that was irreversible. Even if help arrives at this time, she'll probably die from bleeding before reaching the hospital. This was a pretty large wood, it'll take some time before she's located. She let out a hysterical laugh. It was pretty amazing what alcohol can do to the human brain. She was so intoxicated that she had covered such a large distance in a short time. In fact, she couldn't remember most of the journey. She had only sobered up a bit after entering the haunted house. She thought of the tomboy. Was she calling for help? Or did she orchestrate this all along? Leah looked up at the bright moon as if searching for answers. Was she a victim of some crazy conspiracy? If true, what's their goal? What's the benefit of her death tonight? Why her? A lot of questions roamed her mind but no answers. She thought of her family and suddenly wished there was a way to warn her family to leave this crazy town. She had a lot to do and say to them. She wanted to tell Trevor she was going to miss his taunts, warn Rex not to jump on her bed in her absence and thank her mom for raising her, but nay, no time. A tear slipped down her cheeks. This was really the end. Cold and lonely, she murmured before her eyes closed in death. How are you feeling? Ryan asked as soon as his eyelids fluttered open. Daniel looked around. He was currently in his room. He abruptly sat up, ripping off the drip attached to his body. Easy, Ryan cautioned softly. You might have super regenerative ability, but you're still half human. His lips tilted to the side, a mocking smirk present. I don't need this crap. It'll take more week to take me down, he said, tossing the forestand to a side. Ryan lit up. Seeing this side of him only meant he was hale and hearty. Welcome back, Alpha. He draped his arm casually around his neck. Daniel rolled his eyes and sighed. Before I was an alpha, you were my best friend, so can you stop with the title? It gives me the creeps, Daniel rebuked Ryan, who smiled mischievously, and before he could predict what he was up to, Ryan threw himself at him, wrapping himself around his body like some octopus. Thanks, my baby, Ryan cooed, hugging him tightly, almost crushing his sternum. Flabbergasted at his sudden clingy attitude, Daniel tried to peel off from him to no avail. Fine, he sighed, throwing his hands up in surrender. I give up. Satiated with his effort, Ryan pulled away when he saw the sincere plea on Daniel's face, but he suddenly tilted to the side, swiftly avoiding an unexpected blow that flew by. Tisk tisk, Ryan disapproved. You're too predictable and crafty. Daniel sassied back. And you're totally shameless. Ryan grinned. I can't help who I am, he reasoned shamelessly while Daniel was roused with the urge to slap that stupid grin off his face. Daniel suddenly frowned, recollecting something. He asked, "For how long was I out?" Taken aback by the sudden question, he scratched his head awkwardly. Ryan pursed his lips, stared at his wristwatch and started his calculations. 26 or 27 hours ago, I think so. I'm not exactly sure. Daniel's frown deepened. It was a day or more away from his mate. He needed to find her so they could mark and bond before the next cursed week in 3 months' time. Just finding a mate wasn't enough to stop the cursed week, rather it'll diminish the cursed days and weeks, but the bond will need to be completed before the next cursed week, else the pain will be tripled. Orion said, an excited twinkle in his eyes. It's true, you've found your mate. When do I get to meet her? He asked, rubbing his hands together in gleeful anticipation. Daniel raised a brow at his attitude. Why did it seem he was more eager to meet his mate than he was? So, I should expect some baby pups running around in a few months' time. Do I need to add more rooms to the pack house? How many pups do you intend having? Oh God! I'll be an uncle soon, Ryan chattered, completely unaware that his hastily spoken words came out as little more than a gabble to Daniel's ear. Daniel sighed at the thought of Ryan, his sigh a mixture of pity and amusement. He hasn't even found his mate yet and the guy was thinking of pups already. But it was refreshing though, at least he didn't have to worry about his mate being accepted by his pack. Ryan's acceptance overrules theirs already. Suddenly he inhaled sharply when he felt a stabbing pain in his heart. He groaned and slumped down onto his bed. Hey, what's wrong? Ryan asked, concerned over the sudden change in attitude. But Ryan was too muddle-headed to reply. The pain was very intense. It felt like someone pierced his heart with a sharp knife, twisted it until his heart was a mushy mess. Sweat beaded his forehead as he clutched his heart. It was aching so painfully. Hey, buddy. Talk to me. Ryan slapped his cheek, trying to make him sober up. Daniel's expression was dazed at the moment, which Ryan knew wasn't a good sign. Something was definitely wrong. Immediately his eyes widened fearfully. Was it his mate? The only time a werewolf suffers this kind of pain is during the loss of a mate. Ryan swallowed hard. God! This wasn't happening. A tear slipped down Daniel's cheeks. He couldn't understand why he was experiencing this agonizing pain unless fear crept his heart as he suddenly tapped into the bond but felt nothing. It was empty and cold. He gasped. The only time a mate bond feels that way is during the loss of a mate. No. Daniel howled. He rose to his feet and ran out of the pack house so fastly that Ryan couldn't comprehend him. Sprinting towards the forest, he transformed into his wolf form, already burning with rage. He needed to get away from the pack, from everyone, before he destroys his own pack with his hands. The forest would be strong enough to vent his anger. Yes, it should. Where the hell is Leah? Jenny asked rhetorically. It's been an hour since she started searching for her. Maybe it was a bad idea leaving her to go look for the others. Jenny thought, as the matured of them all, she would be able to feud for herself, but it was totally clear she overestimated her. My legs are aching, Mom, Rex complained, drawing Jenny's attention. She suddenly realized how tired the boy must be. she had been dragging him along during the search for Trevor and now for Leah. The boy must be totally exhausted. Just a little bit more, all right? She coaxed, patting him tenderly on the hair. She knew the kind of kids she has. There was no guarantee Rex won't run off on his own the moment she drops him somewhere. Little while? Trevor, who had been surprisingly quiet all this while, scoffed in disbelief. How are we going to find Leah in this crowd of obviously wasted people? Moreover, she's an adult mom. Even if she doesn't know the way home, she could always ask for directions by this time of the night in a new town. She asked, raising her cell phone for Trevor to read the time. Besides, you don't have the right to raise your voice since this is partly your fault. If you hadn't snuck out after your initiation, we wouldn't be looking for anyone right now. She scolded furiously while Trevor gulped hard, clueless on how to defend himself. So get your ass moving, we ain't leaving without your sister, she commanded and stride off in a huff. Thanks to the momentary distraction, Jenny didn't watch where she was going and bumped into someone. Hey, I'm sorry for. Jenny tried apologizing, but the words died off her lips when she met the eyes of the victim. For some unknown reasons she couldn't take her eyes off her and just kept staring at her as if under some spell. The victim started murmuring some words which she smiled and nodded positively to. Mom? Trevor called, creeped out by what was going on. He suddenly stared at the woman they bumped into. She was wearing a long red robe that hid her feet, her face covered with a large cloak and her eyes. Trevor gasped, then instinctively stepped back, preparing to flee with Rex, but she enthralled him too. Trevor couldn't look away but kept responding positively to whatever command she was issuing. Rex too wasn't spared out. Done with her mission, a smile formed on her lips and she stepped away just as Cassie arrived. Hey, Cassie called, breathing heavily. It was obvious she has been running all this while. Yes. The trio answered simultaneously, spooking Cassie. Wow, that was intense and scary. She laughed awkwardly, but it seemed as a dry joke, cause none of them were amused by it. Crestfallen, she cleared her throat before asking, have you found Leah? At the mention of Leah, a creepy smile which Cassie didn't fail to notice appeared on Jenny's face. Oh, don't worry about my daughter. She just called moments ago to tell me she had arrived home ahead of us cause of a running stomach, apparently as a result of something she had eaten at the party, a blueberry orange muffin, I think, Rex added, clearing whatever doubt was in Cassie's mind. True. Cassie exclaimed, but something clicked in her head. No offense, but Leah's new here, she just arrived like yesterday. How then did she know the way home? She asked suspiciously. She couldn't help but feel something weird was going on. She made some good friends whom clearly drove her home, Trevor answered rigidly, emphasizing on the good friends. Then can I at least call her to make? No. Jenny roared, stunning Cassie. Realizing she was a little hard on the poor girl, she apologized. Sorry for my unreasonable outburst, but I wouldn't want anyone disturbing her beauty sleep considering what she's gone through tonight, okay? Cassie answered, unsure of what to make of this situation. Then we'll be taking our leave then. See you later, Cassie, Jenny greeted and walked away, followed by Trevor, whom didn't even spare her a look. Good night, Cassie, Rex said to her and then tagged along with his family. Cassie stared at them suspiciously. Rex, who was obsessed with her all night, didn't call her by the nickname he gave her. Weird. What is life? Life has different definition in the eyes of different people. There is no clear-cut definition for it. For some, life is all about building a family and leading life as it is. For some, life is all about accumulating wealth. For others, life is all about engaging in academic circle. Still for others, life is all about art. For many, life is all about love. For a few, life is all about religious practices. For philosopher like Aristotle, life is about happiness. Happiness is the meaning and the purpose of life, the whole aim and end of human existence. Hence life has different definition for different people. But what was life to Leah? Life was a bully she had to woke up to every day. But that's no more. Now she's dead. Eyes closed, she felt peace like no other. She was finally free from the trials and temptations. Though, a bit aggrieved she didn't get to spend her final moment with her family instead of some rabid wolf. But things are finally going to be perfect. No more disturbances, dramas, distraction. Besides, she heard people in the afterlife have no recollection of their past life cause their memories are taken away. Was she finally getting the freedom she desired? She forced her eyelid open. Paradise, here I come. Eyes slowly opening, she blinked repeatedly trying to clear out her hazy sight, which proved to be a bit effective cause she managed to make out a white. Was that the sky? She squirted her eyes. Why did her afterlife sky look a lot like her bedroom ceiling? Wait. What? Bedroom? Ah! Leah screamed, instinctively rolling off her bed and landing on the ground with a loud thud. She continued screaming as she took in the familiar environment. What the hell? Was this an afterlife prank? She shrieked, tumbling upon her reflection in her full-length standing mirror. Oh my God! Wasn't she supposed to be dead? She was still clearly dressed in her tattered and bloody off-shoulder little black dress. She fearfully walked closer to the mirror, trembling with every step she made. She looked like something that was hurled out of a horror movie. She shivered involuntarily, countless thoughts running through her mind. Why was she alive? Wasn't she supposed to be in heaven, or was it called paradise? Why was she sleeping on her bed like nothing happened? Why wasn't her mom banging down her door by now? She could hear her heartbeat, which was hammering furiously cause of her wild hormones. She reeked of adrenaline right now. Leah checked out her cheeks, shoulder, stomach, and leg and was rendered mute at the sight. There was not a single claw mark, bruise, nor injury. In fact, her skin was as good as new aside from dried up blood, serving as evidence that something crazy went down last night. So if she wasn't dreaming nor hallucinating, then this was probably reality and not the afterlife. She stared at the muddy and dirty footprint starting from her door to the inside of her room, abruptly stopping beside her bed before continuing on her bed sheet. If she wasn't hallucinating, then that's a clear proof she walked into her room herself. But how was that possible? Deducing the amount of blood she lost during the attack that led to her death, she knew there was no way she would come home with such injuries. She wouldn't be able to stand, talk, nor walk such a distance. It was absolutely impossible. Moreover, she didn't know the way home. How did she find her way home? What the hell is wrong with this place? Also, didn't her mom see her in this hideous and rugged state? Who let her in the house? There was no one way anyone would see her in this condition and not scream in shock unless she sneaked in. Realizing that she must have snuck in without her mom's notice, she peeled off her filthy clothes and entered the bathroom for a wash. Leah felt so unclean she scrubbed her skin rosy for almost an hour. Done with her bath, she grabbed her filthy clothes and bed sheet and tossed them in the laundry basket, making a mental note to wash those before her mom's does. Compared to her mom, Leah wasn't hyperventilating, she was oddly calm, which was a good sign she was handling this well. She couldn't imagine what would happen if her mom finds out. It won't probably end well. She grabbed a rag and wiped off the dirty footprints. She had to cover up her tracks until she figured out what was going on. Little town was strange, so nobody was to be trusted, including her family members, who knew what spell they casted on them last night during her disappearance. Done with her cleaning, she was about to get rid of the clothes when her door snapped open and in came her mom. Leah felt her heart leap out of her chest. That was a close call. But surprisingly, when her mom stepped in, the sudden panic turned into longing when her eyes stared into those familiar, caring, protective and assuring gaze. God! She missed her mom like crazy. Without giving her any clue, she threw herself at her mom and gave her a bone-crushing embrace. "Mom, I missed you," she cried, tightening her grip, afraid if she let go all this would be a dream. Jenny sighed wishfully, "It would have been good if this was 10 years ago. Then she could stand these knock the wind out of me hugs, but now her stamina was failing." "Easy, sugar pie, I'm not as strong as you," she complained, but that gave Leah the initiative to tighten the hug more, startling her. Jenny was dazed at her daughter's sudden clingy attitude, it was so unlike Leah. Well, she breathed in and returned the hug, relishing the feel of her daughter's body pressed against her. It's not every day her daughter gets to be this emotional and touchy-feely. Leah tightened her grip, afraid she would disappear if she let go. Even though death had given her the freedom she desired the most, but it was too cold and lonely, an empty void. Why was she even freaking out at her sudden resurrection? Maybe it was just God giving her a second chance to live her life, to do things she never finished before now. She just had to grasp this opportunity well, she thought. But beneath that calm facade, she knew this was all a lie. Something was going on here and she seemed to be stuck in the middle of it all. Join our Facebook and WhatsApp group for more updates, link is given in description. Rest audiobook will be continued in next episode.